It's 1981, and I'm in Mrs. Oswald's first grade classroom. Today is the first day that we're breaking into groups for math lessons, and I'm gifted and talented, so I'm in the advanced group. I'm also a little shit because I make a spectacle of pushing my hardcover math book along the floor and up to the front of the room. The kids in the regular math class have paperback books, which apparently they can lift with their hands. The thing about being told that you are gifted at a young age is if you have access to resources, you can become it. Several years later, in 7th grade, I win a drawing contest to design the Central Follies t-shirt. Honestly, the t-shirts are super dorky, but 200 kids in the play get them for free, and the parents buy them to be nice. Shortly after that, I get a gig drawing the comic strip for the junior high newspaper. For a few years in junior high, I'm a minor artistic celebrity in my small town. Even people who are gifted at art know that they have to practice a lot to become good at it. Later in high school, I'm in Mr. Perpich's biology class. Suzanne Bacon and I are staying late to dissect the brain out of a fetal pig. We aren't required to do this, but it's challenging and we're curious, so we're staying after school. We chip away at the tiny skull to reveal the brain, and we pull it out to see the spinal cord. Then we proceed to stick tiny pins in all of the interesting parts of the brain: the cerebrum, the cerebellum, the medulla oblongata. Even kids who are gifted in science need to put in a little time to become brain surgeons. I was lucky to grow up in Minnesota at a time when it valued and funded public education. The science classes at my high school had resources like microscopes, field trips, and fetal pigs. We also had art classes and show choirs and creative writing. While I was encouraged to dabble in a number of different subjects throughout school, the message I got from adults was that not all girls are good at math and science, and those who are good at it, like me, have moral obligation to go into science and engineering. When I went to college, I studied engineering and art. After college, I studied biology. As some of you know, I went on to get a doctorate in aquatic ecology and teach environmental science at NAU. I like science. To me, engineering feels like confusion, but science feels like discovery. We joke that ecology is the painful elucidation of the obvious. Even so, it's extremely satisfying to identify the insects you expected to find in the stream, or quantify the fire history that you suspected was there all along. Once we've elucidated the obvious, society can use the information to make better decisions. A few years ago, I had a mid-career crisis, so I took a short break from the university to become a flamenco dancer. The flamenco dancing didn't go so well, and actually it's another story, but traveling to Spain to study flamenco gave me a break from my identity as a scientist. This was the first such break I'd had in 25 years. I've been creative and crafty throughout my life, but never in my adult life have I thought of myself as an artist. I was raised to believe in a binary. People must choose either science or art. Then 25 years after dropping my college art major, but finishing my engineering degree, I found myself sitting in Spain, drawing in my journal, and I had an epiphany. I needed more art in my life. I spent the next year cultivating my creativity through visual journaling and lots of outdoor play. At the end of that year, I announced my resignation from the university. Today, I make my living somewhere between art and science. I translate complicated ideas into visual language. Since the crisis, I've come to see art and science differently. First, the binary is bullshit. Most of you already knew that, but I'm gifted, so I'm a little bit slow. There is no binary. Science is art, art is science. Both art and science create something out of nothing. Scientists start with an observation that leads to a hypothesis, which leads to a research project. Art starts with a question that leads to a concept, which leads to a work of art. Both science and art are immensely creative. They also require people to take deep personal risks when they share their work. Second, both fields are cloaked in mystery, so they have to communicate the value of what they produce to the public. Public funding for the arts and sciences has been on the decline since the 1970s, and both fields feel increasingly left behind in our too busy, too political world. Approximately 50% of the US population prefers to make decisions based on logic. The other 50% prefers to make decisions based on emotion. Art speaks to people who trust their emotions. Science speaks to people who trust data and logic. Both fields would be stronger if they communicated to the way people think and feel. Scientists believe that science is currently under attack, yet the percentage of Americans who have confidence in the scientific community has been constant since the 1970s. Maybe scientific arguments are being overcome by the sheer volume of information. Or maybe there are active political lobbies trying to drown out the message that scientists are trying to share. Regardless of the reason, scientists feel that their message isn't being heard. Science is losing an emotional argument on climate change. This is my sketch of a graph of projected average temperature over the next 80 or so years. As you can see, average temperature will rise between 1.5 and 4.5 degrees Celsius, depending on how much greenhouse gas we emit. Adjacent is a tiny sculpture called Follow the Leaders, installed by Isaac Cordal in Berlin, Germany in 2011. It suggests that politicians will still be debating whether climate change is real as sea level rises around them. Both images are visual, but which is more compelling? Art communicates its message largely through emotion. However, when you create or look at art, you use your whole brain. When artists plan their work, they use their prefrontal cortex. When they make art with their hands, they engage their motor cortex. Great art triggers memory and causes us to reflect on our lives. So interacting with art engages multiple parts of your limbic system. Using multiple parts of your brain simultaneously increases the neurological connections. More neurological connections in your brain means that you can afford to lose a brain cell or two and still function. Although it may seem that the geography of what happens in the brain is fixed, scientists are still learning that it isn't that simple, because our brains grow throughout our lives. I teach visualization workshops, and some people say, I just can't draw. The idea that some people are gifted and others are not is wrong. It can actually be a detriment to learning, because if you think you're gifted, you might be less inclined to practice. People of any age get better at the things they enjoy and practice. A group of researchers recently did an experiment with retired people who either discussed or made art. They found increased brain connectivity in all of the research subjects and a marked increase in those who made art. The most rewarding part of my second career is that I am not gifted in the field of visual communication or illustration. I have to use my whole brain, right, left, front, back, top, bottom, every day when I try to figure out how to explain a concept or diagram an idea. I'm not gifted, but I'm growing. It's 2018, and I'm meeting with researchers from the School of Forestry. They have conducted research on the fire history in forests in Arizona and Chihuahua, and they want their results to reach a broader audience than they have in the past. They ask me if I can help convey their findings in a way that the public can understand. Can they send me the journal articles so I can translate them into drawings that will speak to logic and emotion? I'm much more humble than I was in first grade. So I push my hardcover sketchbook to the front of the room and say, I'll try.